Today I'm looking at this high-powered buck converter. I purchased this off of Amazon, and the price is actually quite appealing considering they claim this will do 1,000 watts output. I hadn't seen too many of them that actually have a case on them, which is nice. My application is going to be putting 3 Tesla cells in series, so these 24-volt battery packs. So I'm going to have a nominal voltage of 72 volts, and I need to bring that voltage back down to something that I can use, which is going to be 24 volts in this case. I need a lot of current since I'm going to be powering 3D printers with this. With 3D printers in mind, you can imagine the duty cycle that is required, and I don't think that this is going to be able to sustain that amount of output for a long period of time. So we'll get the top off of this and we'll get a good look at what's inside. Right off of the bat, I noticed that all of the ICs have had their part numbers etched off, but we can assume what they're doing. I mean, this looks pretty straightforward. So this is our input rail here. This first guy is probably just a power converter. We're just a switch converter where you take whatever the input voltage is and give it something to the PWM driver, something stable, and preferably not 90 volts, because that is our maximum input voltage. And we can see that our input capacitors are indeed rated for 100 volts, so that's a good sign. And while we're on the topic of capacitors, I'm looking around and I don't see any ceramic capacitors here on the input or the output rail. You can kind of look under the board a little bit. I don't see anything in there. So I can only imagine the amount of ripple we're going to have on the output. It's probably not a problem for what I'm doing. This IC, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is a TL494. Just the number of pins and the layout. We've got 2 transistors here, and these transistors are likely driving the larger MOSFET transistors under this heatsink, which is pretty typical when you're driving larger MOSFETs with a TL494, just because of the large capacitance on the gates. And lastly, this IC is probably going to be maybe just an op amp, and the op amp can be used to measure the voltage precisely over the shunt. That way we can make sure that we limit the duty cycle on the PWM, just to ensure that we don't overdrive the circuitry with too much current. Now let's talk a little bit about how I plan to load this thing up. When you're dealing with such high voltage and high currents, electronic test equipment becomes quite expensive. Now a power supply is manageable at these values, but the electronic load, on the other hand, well, let's just look at this one here. This one runs around $900 to $1,000, and this can only do 350 watts. Now, there's probably some cheaper ones out there that aren't as feature rich, but in this case here, I'm going to cheat a little bit by utilizing its ability to do 60 amps at lower voltage. And I'm going to make the battery, this Tesla battery, I'm going to make this the load. So what we'll do is we'll connect our power supply in series with the electronic load to the battery, and then we can limit how much current goes into the battery, and we can slowly ramp it up and kind of keep an eye on the temperatures and what's happening with the board, so we don't, prematurely let the smoke out. Now this test is only complete if I can find a power supply that's going to deliver enough voltage and enough current to this converter to allow us to run this test. And I think there's a way to cheat here. I'll just use my Milwaukee batteries. If we put these all in series, we're going to have roughly 81 volts. And they are all fully charged, so they all should be equalized nicely. And one last consideration is you don't want to damage your batteries. We are putting them in a particular situation they're not designed to be in. And that is to put all of these batteries in series and have a large voltage. So if we look at this BMS here, it has the ability to open the circuit to allow the current to stop flowing between these 2 terminals. I've had these batteries apart in the past. I know that they don't have that ability. These terminals that we see here are indeed connected directly to the battery cells themselves, which means that if we did somehow fault these batteries, we're never going to have a high voltage occur across these two terminals here, because if we open the circuit inside, we're going to have a large voltage, because this battery plus this battery plus this battery will occur across this battery, and that would certainly damage the electronics inside of this. For instance, the BMS that I have here is only rated for 60 volts with the transistors inside, so if I started attaching a bunch of batteries to it, even with the open circuit, it would certainly cause those transistors to short. And then the other thing to consider is how much current do we require for driving this with 1,000 watts? Well, at that voltage, at 80 volts, 1,000 watts is only around 12 amps. So if we factor how much loss we're going to have over this inductor, maybe the transistor, and if there's a diode in here, we're definitely going to generate a lot of loss over the diode. There would be a lot of heat created in this converter. So maybe we might require, 14, 15 amps, and these batteries will be able to deliver that kind of amperage, no problem whatsoever. Everything considered, we can now go ahead and get this wired up. To terminate our jumpers, I'm going to be using these little fork terminals, and they're actually pretty thick and very similar to how it feels to insert the original pins into these batteries. So we'll have a good contact here. I think it's a smart idea to reposition these batteries just to get all of the terminals closer together. And I'm using a 14 gauge copper wire, which will handle this current no problem. Now I can verify the voltage, and we have 82.9. Perfect. I had this cable laying around, so I think I can use this. And I had this 25 amp fuse. Ideally, I think I'd want a 20, but if there is a transistor short, I would prefer this fuse blows rather than the wire being the fuse. Now, it's not ideal to use a red wire for our ground, for our negative, but I've already got it laying around, and I'm connecting them one at a time, so I'm definitely not going to make a mistake here. All we have to do is connect this to the negative terminal on our battery, and the converter will then be powered up. Now, you might have noticed that I actually left a loop right here, and this was intentional. So if something were to go wrong inside this converter and we have flames shooting out of it, I'm just going to grab this loop and rip on it, and that's going to sever the connection between the battery and the converter and hopefully prevent a fire. Here we go. So we get quite a big spark there while those capacitors charge up. And nothing shorted, so that's a good sign. Fan is going. Let's get some measurement across the output and see what we have set up. So right out of the gate, we have 5 volts, and that's pretty impressive considering that we started with 83 volts and we're converting it down to 5 right now. There is a bit of a really high-pitched hum. I doubt you can hear it on the camera, but it's very much like an old CRT television. Not an issue for me, but this could be an issue if you're putting this in a camper van. That would drive me nuts. I hear some popping and creaking and cricking, so I just thought I'd look at it with a thermal imager and see if there's any issues, and it looks to be okay. If you've ever had a capacitor explode in your face, then you feel my fear. I've gone ahead and just disconnected it for a moment because I got to thinking, if this is already set up for 5 volts, I'm just going to leave it here because any testing they would have done in the factory would have occurred at 5 volts. So I'm going to assume that if this is 5 volts, I should be able to safely load this up to 50 amps. I'm not sure what their input voltage would have been because it didn't come with a test card or anything, but we should be able to safely load this up to its maximum capacity at this given voltage. So I've just connected this directly up to my electronic load. Now looking at the electronic load, you can see that we have 5.2 volts and we don't have the load turned on, so we're not drawing any amperage right now. This is basically an open circuit. But if we're on the current scale, we're in the range of 60 amps. We can turn on the load, and now we are pulling 1 amp at 5 volts. So it's approximately 5 watts. We're using 5 watts of the capacity of this converter, and it's all coming from these batteries. Now if we go down to our current selector here, we can actually lift this up, we can scale it up, and now we're pulling 3 amps, 15 watts, 20 watts, and maybe we'll just go to, let's say, 100 watts. Close enough. So we've got 19 amps. We'll go a little more, make it an even 20. So we're pulling 20 amps at 5 volts. And now we can look at this converter with the thermal imager again. And we'll just make sure that everything looks good. Our inductor is getting a little bit toasty. I'm going to double this current. Well, I think we let the smoke out. Let's take a step back here and figure out what caused this to happen. Before the event occurred, we had 5 volts coming out, and we loaded this up with around 34 amps. That's about 170 watts. Now, if we look at the input side of things, this is around 80 volts when it's loaded up with around 2 amps. That's about 170 watts. So we had 2 amps flowing through here, and we had 34 amps coming out of it, but only 5 volts. All right, so we did not put too much load on this fuse, which is clearly popped, and this is where the flash came from. There's quite the arc that would have been created here, considering the amount of voltage we have. And that's why we always want to make sure that we put the appropriate fuse in here, because without this fuse, we would have made a really big mess. I'm not kidding. When these things go bad, you could see flames, they will arc, there'd be, capacitors could explode, because the topology on this is we got our positive here, we're feeding that positive to the driver, and out of that driver, it's going into this inductor, and out of this inductor, we're going right back here. So we actually have the ability to put this voltage out on this leg, which overdrives these capacitors because they're only rated for 60 volts. But more importantly, we could also put too much voltage out of these wires, because we're driving something that only requires 5 volts, and all of a sudden we put 83 volts to it. It's going to just completely destroy whatever electronics you have attached to it. While I was editing this video, I noticed that there was a warning that popped up just as the flash occurred. And this warning was telling me that there was an overcurrent situation and the unit was going to disconnect. So this just confirms my previous statement. So the conclusion. It's definitely a good thing that we had a fuse. We loaded this thing up to probably about 70% of its rated amperage, but we only actually used about 20% of its rated capacity. So if you think about it that way, that we only use 20% of what it's capable of doing is converting voltage to a different voltage, and we only use 20% of its ability to do that, then this thing definitely fell far short of the ratings that were listed. And I'm going to have to just go and say, do not buy this. This is definitely going to be a danger to anything that you connect to it. At $40, are we really all that surprised?